What's up, guys, and welcome back to MoAn Inc. If you guys are new here, then hello! My name's Erica, and for today's video, we are going to be diving into Epic the Musical's Underworld Saga. But before we can get into that, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you know every single time I post in the future. And now that you've so kindly done that, let's get into the video. As I have done with all of these videos, here is your disclaimer. I love Epic the Musical. I am genuinely one of Epic's biggest fans. I am the type of person that is walking down the street with like a scowl on my face because I'm like, nobody talk to me. And in my ears, I am playing Legendary, okay? I am obsessed with this musical, probably not to the degree that a lot of you are, but to a degree that classes can be, and a non-musical girly can be, because I am not a big musical fan. So it says a lot that I am literally pounding this through my headphones on the daily. But I always want to start by saying that because we're going to be going through this musical, and we have been going through this musical with the intention of using it as an educational tool. I am aware that rivera-herrans has said frequently this should not be seen as a retelling, this should not be used for studying, this is not supposed to be the Odyssey again. So I'm coming into this as a fan, but also as a classicist, not to critique the musical, but simply to highlight the differences for you guys who love the musical as well, so that we can kind of get you a little bit more familiar with the ancient text. Okay, my perspective on all of this is reception is a magical thing. It is a wonderful thing for people to engage with. I love when people take something from the ancient world and they, sort of squish it into a different box and make it look different. And so therefore, I'm coming at this from that angle. We are going to be pointing out the differences, but the differences are not me saying, therefore Epic is bad. It's me saying, this is a work of art by itself. And then here is what the ancient poem, the epic ancient story tells us. This musical and this work of art is simply inspired by the ancient world, and to try and find those connections, to find the differences, is always beneficial. So with that being said, let's start playing the Underworld Saga. Song number 1 is the Underworld.
Friends, Circe's instructions were clear. No
they were, by the way. In the Odyssey they were, and here they were.
Full speed ahead until we find the prophet.
As I said in the previous video, if you have not watched the Circe Saga, I did explain this there, but I'll re-explain it here in case you just kind of, I don't know. If you don't want to go back, that's totally fine. I can't make you do anything. So Circe does give Odysseus in the ancient text the instructions to go to the underworld. In the musical, she only gives him those instructions, whereas in the ancient world, she also tells his men how to get past the sirens and blah, blah, blah. But we've kind of changed the structure here. I didn't mention this before, but basically when the men initially leave Circe's island to go to the underworld the first time, it is just for that. And then when they go down there, you guys know Elpenor. I'm aware that there is a song that didn't make the cut for the final musical that I will be reacting to much later in the series, but Elpenor, then he sees the ghost of Elpenor when he's down there. Elpenor's like, hey, I got drunk and I fell off the roof at Circe's house. Can you go and bury me because I'm stuck in ancient limbo? The ancients wouldn't have used the word limbo. I just want to make that as a side note. I just keep saying the word limbo because I know that you guys can kind of understand that concept. So Elpenor's down there, he says, go back. They then get back on their boat. The men go back on the boat and they go back to Circe. They bury Elpenor, and then Circe tells them the rest of the journey. She gives them the rest of the instructions to go to the sirens, how to get past Scylla and Charybdis, etc., etc. So there's your fun little tangent for like no reason at all. Anyways, let's keep going.
My comrades, this land confuses your mind. So no matter who we find, full speed ahead until we find the prophet. Good.
This song is perfect. Oh, it's perfect.
All I hear are screams. Every time I dare to close my eyes, I no longer dream. Only nightmares of those who've died. Nothing's what it seems. Nothing's what it seems. And here in the underworld, the past seems close behind. This land confuses your mind. When does a man become a monster?
just as a reminder, in case you guys are tuning into this for the first time, I always print off the lyrics so that I can make sure that I'm quoting appropriately. And when it comes to this line, 558 men who died under your command, I love that we're still getting a countdown. Again, in the Odyssey, we don't get exact number countdowns. What we get are boat countdowns. So we do know, oh, well, when they hit the Lystragonians, for example, they threw down rocks that got rid of X ships or whatever it is. And I think this consistent number crunching in the musical is a really wonderful element that still gets a lot of that ancient idea in here. But as I said in a previous cycle, by making it so specific in this musical, the listener really understands the consequences of every single action that Odysseus makes. And I think that that's a really wonderful addition to the musical. I think it's a really nice way of adding in that ancient idea. Oh, are we hammering today? I hope not. Actually, that would be the perfect time to keep playing the music so you don't have to hear it.
Captain, 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 why would you let the Cyclops live when ruthlessness is mercy? All I hear are screams. Every time I dare to close my eyes, I no longer dream. Only nightmares of those who died. Nothing's what it seems. Nothing's what it seems. But in the underworld, the past seems close behind. I keep thinking of the infant from that
Hector's
night.
son, just a reminder.
I keep thinking of the infant from that night.
This life is amazing when you breathe with open arms.
So Polites comes back. He says a couple of words to Odysseus. And it's funny because a lot of you guys have been commenting under my other videos saying that there's another YouTuber who has reacted to this. I have not seen anybody else's reactions. I really wanted to come into this with just my perspective and, my thoughts and feelings. But a number of you guys have said that somebody else was really highly critical of this. And it's because, at least from what you guys have told me, it's because instead of having the other Greek heroes, we have Polites come back to kind of have his little ghostly voice, get into Odysseus's brain. And I don't know if that's reason to not like this, because yes, when Odysseus gets to the underworld in the ancient text, he is speaking to all of the Greek heroes, right? So he has a little conversation with Agamemnon, who says probably one of the funniest lines. I mean, this isn't an exact quote, but he basically looks at Odysseus. He's like, hey man, you're really lucky. You're married to this great woman, blah, blah, blah. Penelope this, Penelope that. We love her. She's really wonderful, loyal. We know that she's going to be doing great things in Ithaca. Not like my wife. Anyways, not the point of this, but so Agamemnon does that in the ancient text. And then we have Achilles come forward. And Achilles, this moment of the Odyssey is my favorite between the Iliad and the Odyssey. If you guys have watched this channel, you know that I have an absolute love affair with the Iliad. It is the book that really hit my soul when I first read it, and still repeatedly, whenever I read it, I will just want to cry and curl up into a ball. I think it is the best thing that has ever been written, the best story that has ever been told. You can fight me on this. I will die on this hill. So when Achilles comes forward in the Odyssey, in the ancient text, Odysseus basically has this conversation with him where he says, I can't imagine what it's like to be you, but you don't have to worry about anything. You're Achilles. You're this great hero. Everyone knows who you are now. And Achilles looks at Odysseus and he says, I would much rather be a slave on a poor man's farm than be dead down here. And it completely undermines everything that we just discussed in the Iliad. All of the ancient audience would have probably been gagged by this. Every time I read it, I'm completely gagged, because it's the whole first book is about honor, glory, reputation, being immortal and living on through the ages, having your name remembered, being this great hero. And Achilles just says, well, it wasn't worth it. Actually, I take it back. Brilliant. Now, my point of telling you all of this is that if we haven't had the Iliad musical, it doesn't make any sense to bring those heroes back. So I actually think within the confines of this musical, this makes much more sense to have Polites come back and to not have any of the Greek heroes come forward. And I have to say that probably, it's just my theory, that rivera-herrans didn't assume he would write an Iliad musical. And so therefore, now that he is doing an Iliad musical, I would be interested to ask him, if I ever had the privilege of interviewing him, to ask him if he regretted in hindsight not putting the heroes in that we know he's going to be discussing in the Iliad because they are the characters in the Iliad. And I wonder how, with these two projects coming together, where he's tackling them in reverse order, I wonder if he would then look at his version of the Odyssey and say, oh, unfortunately with Ilium, I had to change X, Y, and Z even because I made those changes in the Odyssey. Or I wish that I had stayed truer to this thing in the Odyssey rendition that I did. Because in Ilium, because I know that his Iliad musical at the moment is called Ilium, that we're going to need that there. And now that it's not really continued, it's one of those things that I would just be very interested to kind of talk to him about and discuss. Because within the confines of this musical, that's the point of what I'm saying, within the confines of this musical, I actually don't have a problem with this. I think it makes much more sense for this work of art. And I think if we're looking at it as just the Odyssey again, that's the wrong way of looking at this musical. This musical is inspired by the Odyssey. It is, I'm going to call it, a reimagining of the Odyssey, but it uses so much from the ancient text. It's not supposed to be a copy and paste of the Odyssey. It's a completely different format with a completely different purpose for a completely different audience. And so therefore, yeah, I have no views on this. I would be, maybe after this whole series, I'll go and I might react to that person's reaction because I'm curious about why they would want this to be like, we need to see Achilles, we need to see Agamemnon. I don't think we do. I just don't.
Whatever we face, we'll be fine if we're leading from the heart. No matter the place, or we can light up the world. Here's how to start. Greet the world with open arms. Greet the world with open arms.
Apologies. That voice. It can't be. Mom?
Odysseus, when you come home, I'll be waiting. Even if you're the last thing I see, I'll be
I'm
waiting.
right here, Mom. Can't you see? I'm waiting. I took too long
I'll always love you.
and ventured too
I'll stay
far
in your heart.
while you were
Waiting,
Bye, Mom.
Controversial opinion. Not about the musical, because this is exactly what happens in the ancient text. That when Odysseus is down there, he talks to a bunch of other people, like I just mentioned. One of them is his mother, Anticlea. So this does happen. My controversial opinion, however, and I say this in my Odyssey series, I think she's a bitch. Like, the idea that your son is still alive and he's stopped off in the underworld, he's gone on this like crazy journey, all of this, and when he gets down there, you're not like, oh, hey, it's so good to see that you're safe. No, his mum in the ancient Greek is like, well, I was waiting for you, but you took so long, I died. What a thing to say. Like, I mean, actually, to be fair, this is such like a Mediterranean grandmother thing to say. Like, my grandmother would have said something like this. Like, she frequently would talk about like how much pain she was in. And one time, this is just a little side story, my uncle showed her Jesus on the cross and he was like, you don't know pain and all of this. And my grandma just stared him dead in the eye and said, he doesn't know my pain. Like, this is such a Mediterranean, to be fair. That's my Sicilian grandmother. So that is an accurate depiction of an older Mediterranean woman, but I just think my grandma was such a character. But I just think, like, Anticlea, like, now's not the time. Like, now is not the time. Every time I read it, I'm like, bro, calm down. We're trying to get him home, not to make him depressed along the way. Like, please. Anticlea, get with the program. So it happens. My opinions are not based on this. My opinions are actually based on ancient Anticlea. You didn't need those opinions, but there you go.
All I hear are screams. Every time I dare to close my eyes, I no longer dream. Only nightmares of those Past is always close behind, down in the underworld.
Song number 2 is No Longer You.
I am the prophet with the answers you seek. Time, I've unlocked it. I see past and future running free. There is a world where I help you get home, but that's not a world I know. What? I see a song of past romance. I see the sacrifice of man. I see portrayals of betrayal and a brother's final stand. I see you on the brink of death. I see you try your final breath. I see a man who gets to make it home alive, but it's no longer you.
Love, 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 love this song. I will summarize my thoughts at the end. Obsessed with this song. Was really surprised that Tiresias got his own song. I don't know, I never thought that for a modern reimagining, retelling, especially a musical, that they would say, yeah, Tiresias, he's got to have his own moment. So I love this probably more than I should because I'm a nerd and because I love that Tiresias was given his moment to shine. And in particular, just with this, you're given a really good idea of Tiresias, of his skills. He is a blind Theban seer, specifically in the ancient world. And he's really, really famous. So he's not only famous for this, he's famous for really the Oedipus myth, which actually, interestingly, we know that the Oedipus story was around during this time, not only because of Tiresias being in the Odyssey, so this is obviously in the ancient context, he's mentioned, but also because we have a mention in the underworld scene of Jocasta. She's called Epicaste, and that's that's Oedipus's mother. Oedipus's mother, wife, questionable. But regardless of that, Epicaste does make an appearance. So we know that, and I'll do a whole video on this. So actually, good time to plug that if you want to watch that, then you should subscribe right now, because the Odyssey was merely one story in a web of stories that existed at that time in ancient Greece. And around the 8th century BC, we know that then, and far before then, there were a couple of stories that were really, really famous. And clearly Oedipus was one of them in order for Epicaste, Jocasta, and Tiresias to make an appearance here. And because that story is set in Thebes, Tiresias is a blind Theban seer. That was my whole tangent to just explain that he's a blind Theban spear? Seer, guys, you know what I mean.
This can't be. We've suffered and sailed through the toughest of hells. Now you tell us our efforts for nothing. I see your palace covered in red, faces of men who had long believed you're dead. I see your wife with a man who is haunting, a man with a trail of bodies. Woo!
Love. Love, 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 love. I cannot stress how much I am obsessed with this song. I think that's probably also why I'm not bothered that the other heroes don't appear in this part. Not only because it doesn't make narrative sense, but also because Tiresias has really given his moment to shine, in my opinion. In this part where he's saying, you know, the whole point of this is that the person that he sees with Penelope, the person that he sees back at the palace, that's not Odysseus. And this is something that I get into in my book, The Odyssey Effect, which is really that the story of the Odyssey, the ancient story of the Odyssey, one of the readings that is really prominent in it is it's a story about going home after you have endured so many experiences that fundamentally change who you are. Like, at what point are you then home if you're a completely different person when you return? And obviously on a smaller scale, I think a lot of people can relate to that. You know, when you leave home and you start your own life somewhere else, and then you return back to that place where either you grew up or whatever it is, you know, however many years later. In this instance, bear in mind that when Odysseus goes home, it's 20 years later, right? And so on a smaller scale, when you go back to that environment that you grew up in after such a stretch of time, maybe not 20 years, but still, you end up kind of having that feeling of like, oh, I'm not this person anymore. And that's exactly what's being described here. And that's exactly what the Odyssey is dealing with. So when you read the Odyssey, which hopefully this musical has convinced you to, or this series has, or knowing that the Odyssey is actually a really fun story to read, you can find these really deep questions that are being explored, which is why these texts have stood the test of time. So I love the highlight on this, which is, you know, the song is called No Longer You, but also the whole message is, I see this future, but I don't know who this person is, even though it looks like you, because Odysseus has endured such a unique experience.
I see a song of past romance. I see the sacrifice of man. I see portrayals of betrayal and a brother's final stand. I see you on the brink of death. I see you try your final breath. I see a man who gets to make it home alive, but it's no longer you.
Chills. Even though I love this song, obviously you guys can see I have an absolute love affair with this song, and I keep telling you guys I do, but there are details from the Odyssey that are missed out in Tiresias' little moment from Epic, which is that in the ancient text, he tells Odysseus that after he goes home, he will, and this is basically a long story short kind of thing, okay? Do not quote me on this, but essentially what he says is, you then need to go to a place where the locals don't know what an oar is, like a boat oar, and you need to bring one with you, and then you need to plant it in the ground. My neighbors are knocking. I'm so sorry if you can hear that, but they're hammering. They're not knocking on my door, they're hammering. Either way, not the time, guys. He needs to go to the place where they don't know what an oar is, put the oar in the ground, plant it there, and then only after that, he needs to dedicate it to Poseidon as an offering, and only after that can he grow to old age. So that is part of the story that we presumably would have seen in the Telegony, which is a text that we don't have. I've previously spoken about the whole epic cycle because the Iliad and the Odyssey are part of a series. Technically, not all of them are by Homer, but they would have told the whole series of the Trojan War. The Odyssey is the penultimate book of this series to tell Odysseus' journey home, and then the Telegony would have seen just this last part, and then also follow a different thing. You guys can watch that video. I'll link it up here, whichever corner it is, and I'll also put the playlist for all of those other videos in the description below in case you guys are curious. So that's what we missed here. I don't think it's actually lacking. I'm not saying that because I think we should have included all of that. I prefer it being very concise. Like I said, need to know basis. You don't need any more information because the Odyssey itself doesn't deal with that. Unless Rivera-herrans decides in the future, I'm going to do a musical for all of the lost texts from the epic cycle, it's not relevant to know those things. So either way, big fan. Do not think there is anything wrong with the song though, as you guys have seen. Song number 3 is Monster.
How has everything been turned against us? How did suffering become so endless? How am I to reunite with my estranged? Do I need to change? I'm surrounded by the souls of those I've lost. I'm the only one whose line I haven't crossed. What if the greatest threat we'll find across the sea is me? What if I'm the monster? What if I'm in the wrong? What if I'm the problem that's been hiding all along? What if I'm the one who killed you every time I gave to guilt? What if I've been far too kind to foes, but a monster to ourselves? What if I'm the monster?
My only note here is just that the ancient Odysseus wouldn't have been thinking about this as much. This is purely for a modern audience. Again, that's what makes this good, and that's what has made Epic have the fan base that it does, because it's constantly finding the moments to speak to the modern audience. And this whole song pretty much is just a moment for Rivera-herrans to use Odysseus to infuse a lot more of those modern morals, modern questions that maybe, again, I don't know, but maybe he wishes he had read in the Odyssey, for all I know. That's totally just a throwaway line, totally throwaway theory, but again, yeah.
Is the Cyclops struck with guilt when he kills? Is he up in the middle of the night? Or does he end my men to avenge his friend and then sleep knowing he has done right? When the witch turns men to pigs to protect her nymphs, is she going insane? Or did she learn to be colder when she got older and now she saves them the pain? When a god comes down and makes a fleet drown, is he scared that he's doing something wrong? Or does he keep us in check so we must respect him and now no one dares to piss him off? Does a soldier use a wooden horse to kill sleeping Trojans cause he is vile? Or does he throw away his remorse and save more lives with guile? If I became the monster and threw that guilt away, would that make us stronger? Would it keep our foes at bay? If I became the monster to everyone but us and made sure we got home again, who would care if we're unjust? If I became the oh, ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. And deep down I know this well. I lost my best friend, I lost my mentor, my mom, 500 men gone. This can't go on, I must get to see Penelope and Telemachus. So if we must sail through dangerous oceans and beaches, I'll go where Poseidon won't reach us. And if I gotta drop another infant from a wall in an instant so we all don't die, then I'll become the monster. I will deal the blow, and I'll become the monster like none they've ever known. So what if I'm the monster lurking deep below? I must become the monster, and then we'll make it home. Penelope.
So essentially, like I said, this song is just here for the modern audience. And what we can see throughout the progression of the song is he starts off with our questioning, but we're taken on the journey to see him become essentially the ancient man. I say essentially because it's not entirely, but he becomes the ancient man that he needs to be in order for the end of this musical to hit the end of the Odyssey. I've said this in previous cycles, which is there are iconic moments you cannot change. And Rivera-herrans clearly knew, I can't change the end of this story. Like, he has to go home and he's got to murder all of the suitors, right? Like, that's the story of the Odyssey. When he gets home, that's what he does. And so this song is really in there for us to understand his reasoning for it. And so it's become more of a moral kind of dilemma song, which is starts off with, am I the monster? To fine, if this is what makes me a monster, then I'm happy to be one, because I'm, in a sense, providing, I'm doing the thing that I should be doing, or whatever it happens to be. So that's what this song is here for. I just want people to bear that in mind. You would not catch the ancient Odysseus doing this. He's too busy crying about himself and his predicament and then taking on disguises and, like, you know, playing spy. That's what he's doing in the ancient text. And lying to everybody. He also does that quite a bit. But those are all my thoughts for the Underworld Saga, because this is a shorter saga. There are just 3 songs in this. So we're going to wrap this video up nicely. Thank you so much for joining me today on the channel. As I've said throughout, there are links in the description below to absolutely everything that you will need regarding the Odyssey, regarding my other videos, as well as links to where I found the lyrics, that kind of stuff. If you guys want to read along with me, please do critique if I'm getting my lyrics from the wrong place. Let people know, just in case I'm mentioning anything that maybe you don't have from a different site, whatever it happens to be. I love this little community that we're building. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will catch you at the next video when we go into Epic's next saga. So I'll see you guys then.